Have you ever felt like you need an extra hour in your day?
This is your 25th Hour Ottawa, brought to you by the Carleton School of Journalism and Communication. I'm Molly Kett.
And I'm Amna Pervez. Today we explore the value of community. We'd like to focus on some of the people in Ottawa who shape our community and how we live together.
The 25th Hour brings you up close and personal with Ottawa residents giving back to the communities that have made them who they are.
To kick off our show, we bring you some tough ladies who know the real meaning of sisterhood. Leather-clad, fun-loving, and flying high. These are the Wynn Sisters, an all-female motorcycle group. The 25th Hour went for a ride with the founder, who tells us how the group came together.
It's just the most free feeling. You can smell everything. You can feel the wind. You can feel the heat of the sun. Just getting my clothes on, my leather on, my helmet on, my glasses, my gloves. I'm suiting up for the game. Hi, my name is Linda Bejan, and I'm the founder of Wynn Sisters. I founded it in May 2011, and we've been going strong ever since. Wynn Sisters is a group of classy female riders. We've been riding since May 2011, and we come from all walks of life, all different places of employment. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have nurses, we have government workers, we have stay-at-home moms, we have new moms. Our slogan that we developed is "Two wheels unite us," and that's what we're all about. We're all about the ride. Wynn Sisters is important to me because I see how empowered women are when they show up and they can't believe that it's an entire group of female riders. It's just most comfortable for them, and they can be themselves, let their hair down, and just ride. We've been multiplying since the early spring of this year. We were 245 ladies. We're now in September, and we are just one short of 450 all-female riders in the Ottawa area.
My name is Christine, and my riding name is V-Star because I ride a V-Star Classic, and her name is Chug. She's sparkly purple, and she just had a customized paint job put on her this year, which I absolutely love. Wynn Sisters, when I joined, I thought I was just going to have a bunch of new female riders to ride with, and as I got more into the group, I realized that there was a lot more to it. It was a lot of like-minded individuals who shared a passion for riding. The women are amazing. They're inspiring, and they're empowered, and it's really, really fun. Wynn Sisters, our group color is purple because we are women that stand together against violence, specifically, obviously, domestic violence against women, and also children who have witnessed violence and elderly abuse. For me, that's a very near and dear topic because I was a child who witnessed domestic violence in my own home. It's traumatizing to watch that. So for me, I feel even more passionate about this group and why we get on the ride and ride together because of that history. My hobby, motorcycling, is just freedom on the road. I get on my bike and all the worries and all the stress of day-to-day activities just kind of washes off of me. It's really an amazing feeling. It's wind therapy.
It's just so wonderful. I want to bring all the women in. I mean, it's normally typically been a man's world riding motorcycles, but now, you know what? The ladies are in.
From one motor fanatic to another, Mike Nilsson works late into the night at Makerspace North in Ottawa. The Makerspace movement brings together independent inventors, designers, problem solvers, and do-it-yourselfers to create diverse projects. Nilsson's goal is to get his project back on the racetrack.
It's a challenge. You don't realize what things mean to you until they're actually gone away. I've had other cars I would have liked to have kept as well, but they've gone on their way to other homes and other owners. Getting the opportunity to bring this one back, it was important. It wasn't obvious, but I had the feeling I had to bring it back.
My name is Mike Nilsson. I'm a race car enthusiast, and I'm using Makerspace to restore my 1960 Formula Junior.
I think the concept of Makerspace is really wide open. We are people who like to make things, and there's no limit. For me, you're putting yourself in a position like I am now in a makerspace. I'm not hiding in a garage somewhere. I'm not at home hiding in the basement. There's a level of expectation that you're here to do stuff. And I think it's good. I acquired this car back in around 1980. It was a one-off, built in Toronto by some local guys in the local garage. I think it got looked over a lot. It's like, oh yeah, interesting, but people want name brand cars. So I bought it. Girlfriend at the time wasn't impressed, but she went along with it. And as I start looking for stuff for the cars, you just can't have one race car. Run into another car. And then this one kind of got pushed to the side and pushed to the side and pushed to the side. And of course I had the one race car, and then of course another one showed up. And so at one point I think I was up to like 5 or 6 race cars in different states of repair and whatnot. End up getting one finished, end up racing it, end up breaking it, getting another one, racing it, and all along the way this car sat in the back corner because it needed a lot of work. But the biggest problem, I have very little body work. I have a couple pieces and a couple of hoops that I can sort of look at, and I have to make it based on the photographs I've been able to find. I know that the car was built in Toronto by Helmut Tubler, and I know Helmut raced it for about 5 races in 1961, because that's all I can find in all the entry lists. And it got these great color photos. Most part also opened in 1961, so I think everybody who was a photographer in motorsport was there every weekend snapping photos. There's probably hundreds of photos of my car still out there. I just got to find the right person, the right photo album. There we go. Now Helmut Tubler is still with us. He's living in Mississauga in long-term care, and the goal is to get the car ready and get it out there and hopefully get a nice picture of me and Helmut together with the car again. The official Formula Junior race as part of the International Diamond Jubilee here in Canada is going to be at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, also known as Mosport, in Bowmanville, the second week in June 2018. It's about 600 days to get the car absolutely ready to go. If there was any motivation I ever had to finish this car, I think that was really it. Saying, I got to do this. I've had this car, 1980, off and on, I've owned it. It's time to finish it off. 35 years, it's time to finish off a project. And I said, that's it. I'm biting the bullet. I'm putting everything else aside, and I'm going to focus on this. Why this car? I kind of Could have bought any other car. Could have bought one that was ready to race. Nope, I decided to buy this one because there's something about the challenge. It's not the destination, it's the journey. I think this is one of those times that is so true.
We're now joined by 25th Hour host Rachel Gilmore. We've just experienced a long election. There were a lot of election promises made and a lot of debate over specific election topics. What are your thoughts on what went down?
Well, I think as a journalist, you kind of look at all the coverage of this kind of long campaign and you see all these debates coming up. Like, for example, the niqab debate was a really big one. You know, we see in these kinds of situations, these arguably sort of Islamophobic policies, as some commentators were saying, that may be trampling on constitutionally protected freedoms for certain religious groups. So when we see those kinds of situations, it's really positive to see Canadians and communities rising above those kinds of that kind of hate and doing things like sponsoring Syrian refugees. So that was a really wonderful thing we saw come out of this long election campaign.
And with the new government in place, we might see some policy changes in terms of the refugee crisis because of the promises they made during their election.
That's right. Some communities are formed by like-minded people. Others are motivated by the desire to help those who have lost their own community and give them a safe space to call home again. The Syrian refugee crisis has captured the attention of many people as we witness a mass migration. Although Syria may be far away, Canadians right here in Ottawa are opening their arms.
There was a knock at the door, and then when the door was open, they just rushed all of them into our house. They just picked me up, put me into their big Land Cruiser, and just put a blanket on me and took me to wherever there was, because I was kind of blindfolded. The situation went to an extent that we realized that we can't stay there anymore, and we decided at that time that we need to leave the country. So that's why we left everything behind and got the first available flight to Canada, and we ended up here as refugees. Yeah, so we arrived with just $150, and when we landed in Montreal, the only place that we could go to, and we were actually sent to that place, was YMCA. And then at YMCA, all that you could stay there was 3 to 4 weeks, and then you had to find a place for yourself. You had to get some social assistance. You had to get all the information. But when I think about that time, I remember that we had absolutely, like, despite staying there for a month, other than some connections with other local refugees, we had absolutely no contact with any other agency or settlement agency that could help us.
A beach story is a tale of perseverance and hardship. It is also evidence that refugees will not put a strain on our country. Rather, they'll help us grow. While a beach story has a happy ending, the same thing cannot be said for millions of Syrians right now. Plagued by the Syrian civil war in 2011, combined with the rise of ISIS, Syrians are seeking refuge across the entire world, including here in Canada. In Ottawa, regular people are stepping up and taking initiative to help end this crisis. Louisa Taylor is the director of Refugee 613, a newly created nonprofit that helps people in Ottawa sponsor, donate, volunteer, and advocate for Syrian refugees.
Canada is one of the few countries in the world that has private sponsorship of refugees. So this means that groups of private citizens can get together and provide the money up front and the plan up front for how they're going to help a refugee come to Canada and settle here. We are a coalition of agencies, volunteers, city staff, a whole bunch of stakeholders who want to see Ottawa have a coordinated, coherent response to the global refugee crisis. When Canadians saw what happened to 3-year-old Alan Kurdi, it really moved people and it really opened people's hearts and said, surely Canada can do more to be part of this crisis on the other side of the world. Churches in Ottawa have been leaders in this field. They have been doing this for years. The Catholics, the Anglicans, the Mennonites, the United, they are all out in front. And they are the ones we're all learning from, how to do this right.
One of the churches in Ottawa stepping up is St. Martin de Porres. Paul Soucy is a deacon at that church and has a long history of helping refugees.
You're seeing the largest migration of people across the continents in history, and it's all to do with war. 5-10 million people that are displaced in the violence and the horribleness of war. And you have to make a decision within yourself whether you're just going to close your eyes or leave it to the government or leave it to somebody else or just say, well, God, I hope and pray that everything's okay over there and just send them help. The reality is that we're the help. And I think each individual has to kind of search their hearts and ask the question, what is my responsibility? And I can see right now that things are starting to crank up. So we'll see how it all plays out. Again, remember, we're just in the infancy of this. We've only brought in 1,400 families. There's a lot in the queue right now. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So as we ramp up all these things with the mayor and 611?
Refugee 613.
Refugee 613. Everybody's ramping up right now, just like we are. You know, we have 110 parishes in the Archdiocese of Ottawa. The Archbishop has asked everyone to do something. The Pope has basically said to the Catholic Church, which is, I think, 280,000 parishes across the world, bring a family and do something.
For those looking to sponsor a family, faith and hope can only go so far, as sponsoring a family is a complex process. However, thanks to lawyers such as Katie Black, this process is becoming a little easier.
We came together to create this program to both educate the community in terms of the sponsorship process, to put on a legal clinic that was available to any member of the public, and then additionally to match lawyers from the private bar with individuals or groups who are interested in sponsoring refugees. Filling out the forms and correctly ensuring that all of the information is accurate and consistent is actually one of the greatest barriers to bringing people to Canada. These situations are very real, and a month, 2 months off the application process can make a huge difference. You look at people like those, and we can bring those people to this country and they can make a real contribution because they are grateful. They know what they have here. They know how lucky they are to be here. And it's incredible to be a part of an organization that is dedicated for this very purpose.
With the help of Refugee 613, Ottawa churches, and local lawyers, people of Ottawa are showing that nobody should be denied the right to a safe life. The city is ready to step up and can be Canada's leader throughout this crisis.
Speaking of new places to call home, a team of young Ottawa poets have come together to create a safe space for the spoken word community. Urban Legends has become a major player in Ottawa's spoken word scene. Recently, the group set its sights on a national competition.
Dear niece, you were born on the day of love. With your umbilical cord wrapped around your throat, we watched as you died, as you choked. And what was supposed to sustain your life, we mourned. But on that day, we watched as you became the embodiment of hope. You fought. With skin so blue, you fought. With all odds against you, you fought. As they tried to resuscitate you, you fought and fought and fought. My stage name is Apollo the Child. I've been doing spoken word in the city for 9 years. Urban Legends, I was there day one. Again, I was like 16, slamming against people who have gone on to become world champions. 2014, I was the team captain of the team, and then this year I'm also the team captain. Capital Slam was the only slam in Ottawa for the longest time. They've been running for 11 years now, I think. But then one of the performers who made the team on Cap Slam, I think on 2 to 3 different occasions, he wanted to have a venue that was really accessible to people of the Muslim community, but also to like youth and just people who weren't comfortable being in a bar, and students as well. So he decided he was going to form Urban Legends.
Awesome. So today we have a great show lined up. And obviously you guys are here because the Urban Legends team is featuring. What?
I've never seen something so small kick so much ass but my niece. On that day, I've seen it in you. I've seen it in you as you fought for breath. As you fought for your right to live, we thought you were finished. You blessed God with your presence for 10 of our earthly minutes before you decided to rejoin the ranks of the living. But it's not that simple. In life, these things seldom are. The battle you fought had come with a cost. For being gone so long, the doctor so calm told us that most of your hearing was gone. I went through depression and suicide for a little while. And my parents, my family did not know about it. And I came clean about it for the first time at Urban Legends before I did anywhere else. People responded really well to it because it is a big stigma that as a man of color, you're not really supposed to talk about, you know? We're kind of raised to be strong, tough, and not really vocalize your feelings and not show that you are not necessarily human, but you have that side of you that's vulnerable. And that's the kind of environment that Urban Legends created. It's just, you felt comfortable coming and admitting stuff and just coming clean and just speaking your mind. We did get a lot of like backing from minority groups. So Urban Legends was that spot. It was that stage that was meant to be accessible. I say people are minority mainly, but it was supposed to be accessible to anyone.
My name is Panos by birth, but I go by Plato. 2015 team. They're just a great bunch, to be honest. So it's myself, Apollo the Child, Infinite Mind, Dolly, and Girly Boy.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Hamilton. I go by Katie. In the poetry community, I go by Girly Boy. Sugar and spice and everything nice, girls are taught to be weak. I am the only person who does not identify as cisgender, so I don't know if that's, because that kind of allows me to talk about that in a different way than them if they were to ever talk about it. In general, the world as a whole is very like cis-normative, but in the slam poetry community, it's more if you were to talk about it, those are the people who either would know about it already and then would just kind of be like, oh, okay, cool. Or if they don't know about it, then you usually have a very, like, you kind of instantly have a pretty strong connection with everyone in the community, so they would feel like open to ask you questions about it. It actually starts out with the swear word, so. Fuck you for making me think I needed you. Do you not understand that I don't want to be part of this anymore? Do you know that it was your voice that rang in my ears as darkness filled my eyes and mind and blood stained my skin? Do you know I'm only part of this because you need me? But I know you'll find someone else.
It's actually incredible to work with youth in general because no matter who it is, no matter how old they are, they have a perspective that is completely outside of my own. I think that in many ways, they're better than I am, and it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with the stories they tell and how they tell them.
My name is Devin Worry, and I am a 14-year-old girl. Well, for me, it's a really good way to express myself, and it kind of makes me more than my age and more than my peers. Youth can do something like this, and you don't have to be defined by your age, and you don't have to just stop at something because you think that I'm too young or there won't be a spot in the community. I just want everyone to know that it's an open community.
For being gone so long, the doctor so calm told us that most of your hearing was gone. They told us you were lucky to have died cerebral palsy. Lucky to have died such a lethal fate, but not lucky enough. See, we cried when they told us use of hearing aids, my niece. I wrote that poem for you.
Once again, I learned a lot about myself through writing, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't discovered spoken word. To be able to speak about this and not feel like you're going to be put down for how you feel, or that how you feel is a little ridiculous. I tell people all the time now, it's like, you're human, you are allowed to feel.
I don't even title my poems anymore. Well, okay. Dear niece.
Urban Legends is currently competing in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan at the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word. We'll all be wishing them good luck. With cobwebs creeping onto porches and pumpkins being carved into ghoulish faces, it's hard to escape the feeling of Halloween. In the spirit of the season, we asked Carleton University students about their costume plans.
Hi, I'm Alexandra White for the 25th Hour. We're on campus today asking people what they want to be for Halloween.
For Halloween, I want to be Christina Yang from Grey's Anatomy because she is bae. My Halloween costume will probably involve a pun.
I want to be a mermaid man from SpongeBob.
Why do you want to be a mermaid man from SpongeBob?
Because my friend's being Barnacle Boy. And I want to be Barnacle Boy from SpongeBob.
I'm being Superman for Halloween.
I want to be Oscar Proud from the Proud Family. Shout out to everyone that watch Family Channel.
I might have to go with the classic Minion this year.
I'm going to be Mickey Mouse for Halloween.
Why are you going to be Mickey Mouse?
Because my girlfriend's going to be Minnie Mouse.
Oh my god, it's so hard. Okay, do you have any ideas, like costume ideas?
It's just a lot of work to plan a costume and
I have to say, my favorite costume idea by far was the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. I grew up watching SpongeBob, so it's the best idea I saw.
I know, but for me, the Proud Family guy did it. Dressing up as the Proud Family dad, that's just awesome. I grew up watching that show every single day after school, and I just loved it.
Here at the 25th Hour, we like to weigh in on community issues. This week, we hear from Owen Maxwell. After one of the longest election campaigns in Canadian history, Owen tells us how Elections Canada came up short.
The election is finally over, and we can all breathe and relax. But the road to that breath was long for many Canadians this year when new rules preventing voter cards being used as valid proofs of address forced thousands of Canadians to find exhausting alternatives to exercise just their democratic right to vote. But none would have thought the simplest roadblock this year in the election would be a set of stairs. I'm talking about accessibility of voting stations across Canada, the often overlooked blemish on Elections Canada's slowly improving record. As of 2012, 3.8 million Canadians were living with a disability, and that number hasn't gotten smaller. In 2011, Elections Canada was reprimanded by a human rights tribunal after an elderly man was forced to slide down a set of stairs on his rear end because his voting station didn't have a ramp. Worst of all, when he got inside, his ballot station wasn't walker-friendly. But it's been 4 years since then. Obviously, Elections Canada has ironed out all the kinks in its system by now, right? Not exactly. Since then, they've created 15 mandatory criteria for voting stations in Canada, a noble endeavor where these criteria actually mandatory. Out of the 28,000 polling stations across Canada, 19,000 enforce these criteria, and 380 of those still aren't wheelchair accessible. Elections Canada is still outside of the consideration stage for online and telephone voting, which would enable private voting for the blind and increase voter turnout overall, as recent campus stations proved how powerful convenient voting can be. George Bush Sr. signed the Americans with Disabilities Act 25 years ago, and Bush Jr. passed the America Votes Act in 2002, mandating accessible voting. The Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois are the only parties who haven't promised to pass such acts after the election, despite a promise from the Harper government in 2006, which still hasn't come to fruition. Elections Canada lists the accessibility for all their stations online, which at least offers some warning to those wondering where to vote, but still isn't a replacement for 100% voting accessibility.
Thanks, Owen. We're now joined by our field host, Craig Lord. Craig, can you tell us where you are?
I'm here outside the Carleton University Art Gallery where just a few days ago, a teepee stood.
You can still see the imprint of where the white tarp was draped over long wooden poles, and you can even still smell the tobacco in the air when it was burned for the Walking with Our Sisters memorial. Now, the Indigenous community has recently been very critical of the previous Harper government's inaction on the issue of murdered and missing Aboriginal women. Now, women in the community are speaking up to push for change and make sure that everybody is aware of these issues.
Off the beaten path, you lock my eyes as you walk past, but you won't see.
I am a family member of Canada's over 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women. Her name was Carla DeRoger. She used to make jewelry and dream catchers, and she was found in her apartment, murdered, and the man who murdered her was charged and is in jail now. And we're very fortunate, ironically, to know that. As many families in Canada, their family members' cases are often just neglected, or it seems just like they're not treated with respect, the respect that they rightfully deserve. Because these women, they were people, they were loved, they were women first. We're in Hog's Back Park right now, and the reason I chose this place was my first night out on my own in Ottawa, after coming to Carleton for the first time, moving into Carleton for the first time. And it was actually very, very terrifying for me. Around the same time was when the media was really covering Tina Fontaine's story. Tina Fontaine was, I believe she was a 15-year-old Native girl whose remains were found in the Winnipeg River. And I was really triggered by that, having these feelings, just being scared to go out on my own. Like, I'm a young Ojibwe woman by myself in a big city, and also on a university campus. I decided to use my songwriting, and I just decided, like, you know what, like, I'm so sick of feeling just so, just having to isolate myself because of these awful feelings. And I wrote a song basically trying to say, like, I'm done with being so scared, and I'm gonna fight so women, even just one woman, doesn't have to feel like this anymore. What Walking with Our Sisters is, it's a traveling memorial in the form of an art installation around Canada. As far as my involvement goes, I volunteered myself, I believe, twice as a performer for their fundraisers.
Where they can live each day without thinking, is today the day I die.
Great, so I'm Gabby Rikiki-Fried. I'm one of the co-leads for Walking with Our Sisters Ottawa. Walking with Our Sisters is not political. I think in some ways it is inherently political, because Indigenous women organizing is still something that is a political act in this country. But the focus of Walking with Our Sisters is not necessarily to engage politicians. It's to provide a space for healing and for grieving and for support for family members. And I think that the vigil happening on Parliament Hill, it was not planned that it would be at the same time as the memorial being here. but all of the family members who spoke at that vigil were also the family members who came to the memorial. And so having both spaces to both like advocate and be political and demand from our leaders that they do something and that they recognize the devastation that losing a loved one in this way causes, along with then having a space that's, yes, very difficult and really sad, but also so beautiful. Everyone who's walked through, you can't help but sort of be taken aback by how beautiful the space is and how much love and beauty these vamps were made with.
My name is Claudette Commanda. I did respect the request to come forward and to stand here and support Bridget and support the families to raise this fundamental issue on the reality of Indigenous women that go murdered and missing, and to educate Canadians, to give that message out there that this is a real issue. It's fundamental, it's critical, it's an urgency, and it has to end. Because every day, even as we're speaking now, I'm sure somewhere across this land there's a woman that's gone missing. You're going to find a human remains of one of our women that went missing.
I want to be here in support of my cousin, Loretta Saunders. She was actually murdered, and my mom is like a big activist for trying to get an inquiry from the government for missing and murdered Aboriginal women, so I thought it was important that I came today.
I recently went to the Champlain Park neighborhood and met a man named Daniel Buckles. Daniel recently started the Champlain Oaks project to protect trees in his neighborhood. And it occurred to me, meeting residents like Daniel or others, that whether they were fighting to preserve these trees or celebrate their beauty, that trees were really at the roots of this community.
It's really gut-wrenching to see these trees come down. It's sort of a combination of anger and sadness that it produces, but mostly anger. My name is Daniel Buckles. I live in Ottawa, in Champlain Park, which is in Westboro. And I helped start the Champlain Oaks project in 2011. Initially as a protest, but very quickly became a celebration of the fabulous trees that we have here and our efforts to preserve them. The protest was over the destruction of one of these massive bur oak trees. That goes back 165 years, and that tree was at risk due to an infill development. The community raised concerns about that loss, and we fought a battle with the city and with the developer to try and save that tree. Eventually that failed. But one of the things that it really did is I would say, awakened the neighborhood to the importance of the trees that we have and the need to celebrate and recognize the trees that we have. It certainly awakened me to to the existence of these trees and their special qualities. More recently, a family in the neighborhood that had built a new house contacted me and said, we'd like to plant a tree that our children can watch grow. And we think that a Champlain oak would be a fabulous tree to plant in our property.
And it's a little tree, but I also thought it would be really cool to get the kids involved with the story of the Champlain oaks in the neighborhood, and hopefully they'll be able to watch the tree grow as they do. I think it's important to plant trees, and they add such value to our environment, and I want the kids to understand that as well as they grow up. And I think they will, living in this environment. We're in the urban area, but we're so close and surrounded by valuable trees, so I appreciate that. There's new developments coming into our neighborhood, and there's often a case of conflicting priorities. So I think it's just important to recognize that where there's an opportunity to plant, that we sort of take hold and capitalize on that opportunity.
A lot of the pressure that we have around trees is through infill. Trees get taken down because of the size of the new houses on the lot. I think this is a really interesting opportunity to start talking to our planning staff and sensitizing them to the fact that we have to push back against developers. So over the course of the next year, the city is going to be taking a look at how can we preserve our urban forest and perpetuate it? How can we strengthen it? Right now it's taking a look at what are the gaps, like what are the challenges, and what is Ottawa doing well with respect to managing our urban forest.
Having a plan and developing a plan for managing the urban forest in Ottawa is necessary. It's going to take a year and a half to develop this plan, and it will just be a document on the shelf if the city doesn't take the whole issue much more seriously.
It's the nicest thing that you can look at, really. If you're looking outside, I would much rather look at a tree than a road, per se. So adding one bur oak, I think, will help, hopefully, down the line. It's an investment in our community, and we're not going anywhere. We're here for the long term, so I think that we'll enjoy watching the tree grow up.
I'm here at Carleton's Macodrum Library, and libraries are at the heart of any academic community, but when a library's books are old and falling apart, students can't get the most out of them. The 25th Hour went to Centennial Public School, where a local librarian is fighting to rebuild her school's collection.
We can't afford to keep buying new books. So we get really good with tape and glue. The library is a space for everybody. It doesn't matter what your reading level is. It doesn't matter what your interests are. Hopefully there is something to engage every student. When they're here in the library, no one wants to read a damaged, very sad, old, smelly book, and so we can't get rid of them all right away because we need to have some books in the library. And some of them are old favorites that you need to have in your collection. We just can't. We have to keep them on the shelves even though they're very sad. It's sad. It's sad that the collection can't be updated so that the needs of all the students and teachers can be met. It affects their choices. They don't have as many choices, and it's so frustrating. So for example, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, we only have the first 3 in the series. Other popular series, we might have 1, 3, and 7, but that means they can't read them in order.
I asked for new books, but they said they didn't have enough money for the cost. I asked for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Big Nate, and some other comic books. So it's really hard to discover new books if there's no new books. I like the library so I can read new books, and it feels like I'm in the book when I read it.
I love books, and that if you want to read a book but you also don't want to buy it, you could just take it from the library.
Many schools, they were built in the 60s, the 70s. You'll have books from 60s, 70s, 80s. However, if your library is not continuously weeded, then you are going to have the problem of older books on your shelves. And if you cannot get new books every year, you can't weed the older books out because your shelves, there won't be enough for all the students. If literacy is a huge concern for our students, and they don't have access to books at home because, for example, they can't afford to purchase them, they don't know about the Ottawa Public Library, their parents might not have time to take them there or just don't know about it. Coming to the library, it enhances what they're already doing in the classroom. But they're reading for pleasure. It's not something that they're asked to do. It's not a specific book that they must read. It's their choice. Things change so quickly. The planets, Pluto is no longer classified as a planet. So information that is not correct, information that is outdated, that is a big problem with nonfiction. I believe it's because we have a lot of new Canadians, and so they just don't have access to purchasing books and having them at home.
English is not the language of the home of a number of our students, and so in those families they would have books within their first language but may not have books within English or French, and all of our students are learning both English and French. So our library gives them an opportunity to borrow and try out those books, to practice them at home, to practice them with their parents, and to find the books that interest them and the topics that interest them to take home and share with families. So it's an important resource to be able to have handy and to have right here. There are so many things that will add to the way that our children learn. And we don't want to forget the libraries, but we want to make sure that we've got a really rich collection that the children can borrow, take home, share with their families, and bring back in the spirit of a library.
Books are a great way to escape reality, and so are costumes, especially during Halloween. One of our reporters, Matea Zecco, will give us an in-depth look at the community creating spooky experiences for families at Saunders Farm.
I'm gonna be expecting it. I don't get scared very easily. I'm telling you, I don't get scared. Why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Mark Saunders, and I'm the Director of Fun here at Saunders Farm.
How many people would you say that you get coming here?
We get about 50,000 people in 5 weekends. So it's a super intense, tight period of time. And we've just recently we surpassed our millionth customer.
How do you think that Saunders Farm brings together this whole community?
Well, you know, I'm thinking about that. Nothing brings people closer together than getting scared and whatnot, and that's kind of what we do. And people come here as a place to physically connect, rather than nowadays it's in a lot of social media and tweet and Facebook and like and all that kind of stuff. Well, here you can do it.
Why do you think scaring people in particular is what attracts people to come here?
Well, 99% of the time, people get scared, they laugh afterwards. It's a stress release. And even though it's stressful, it's one of those things that you always know you're safe. If it was a really difficult situation and you don't know you're going to make it through, whatever, that's really stressful.
So what are the tactics to scaring people?
For the most part, if you are, oh, there we go. So there's a number of tactics. There's the blood and guts approach where you're in the face and you're screaming. It's kind of like rock and roll that you can, or heavy metal approach, right? And that's good for some people, but other people it really turns them off. Sometimes just creating an atmosphere where it's dark and it's quiet and there's a few sounds that you don't recognize, that is, the suspense. And to us, sometimes people's imaginations are scaring them more than we are because they just imagine something is coming up around the corner. So there's the suspense, and I think you need a nice mix of those kinds. So if we were just scaring all the time, people wouldn't necessarily. It would just be a little bit overkill. So you have to sort of lull them in a false sense of security and then get them, or not. And they're like, oh, nothing happened here. Yes, it did, So you have to have there's various techniques, and we try and employ all of them in each haunt, but in different ways, so that people will so that we're always keeping them on edge.
So what joy do you get out of scaring people?
I get joy out of giving people fun experiences, and that's what motivates me.
What do you expect in the future for Saunders Farm? How will it continue growing from here?
When we started this thing as a strawberry farm, and now we're scaring people, so who knows what the next 25 years will be like. We're just open to trying new things and recognizing that what we have right now can always improve, and what we have right now may change. And so we have to evolve and be open to change.
From spooky to sweet, our last story brings us a tale of canine companions who aren't just pets, they're family.
Many owners go above and beyond to keep their pooches happy and healthy.
Dogs can be loyal and loving companions, but sometimes a man's best friend needs a best friend too.
It feels amazing. It's a bond that, like no other. When you get an animal, they become a part of your family, and you should treat them like you would treat any other part of the family. My name is Emily Giroux. I'm from Ottawa. I'm a canine hydrotherapist, so basically we swim dogs for rehabilitation and exercise. The warm water really relaxes the muscle and it increases the blood flow, so we can do a lot of manipulation in the pool and work on whatever injury the dog has. A year after my father died in a motorcycle accident, I fell into a depression that I didn't know I was capable of. I thought I was immune to it after being a nurse and seeing so many people go through it, and I realized that I'm not Superwoman. So, not consulting my husband, I told him the day before, by the way, I'm driving to Peterborough and getting another dog. And he said, well, at least she's getting out of the house. So when you get a Border Collie, they are high energy, high intensity dogs. So Seth kind of forced me to get out of the house 3 times a day, to walk at least 10 kilometers, and exercise is the best cure for depression. So I slowly got myself out of my dark spot, and then discovered a few months later that Seth wasn't quite right. There was something wrong with him. Brought him to the vet, and sure enough, he had severe hip dysplasia on both sides. After about 1.5 years of being a client here, coming twice a week, it was part of our routine, and the owners told me that business was for sale and that they'd probably be closing down. So I talked to my husband, and we took the decision to buy the business, and the rest is history. I have Lex, who's a 12-year-old Border Collie. He has slight arthritis in the hips, and he's the best, most perfect dog in the world. And then I have Seth, who I was talking about, who has the hip dysplasia, who is complete neurotic Border Collie. And lastly, I have a foster dog. Her name is Sophie. She's had a broken femur. She got accidentally strangled while playing with another dog, so she has brain damage. But we're working on retraining her and getting her up in shape and ready for adoption. My dogs are amazing. I can't imagine walking into my house and not being greeted by my dogs. The difference between being a nurse and being a therapist for dogs is that dogs, no matter what, they're constantly full of love and grateful. And they just greet you like you're their best friends, no matter what. And I have forever that neurotic, crazy dog that drives everyone crazy. I will be forever grateful and love him for what he's given me. Dogs to me, and especially mine, are just an unconditional love.
He's seriously like the best dog ever.
My name is Heidi Maglaris, and I am a foster and volunteer for a rescue group called Billies in Need. Billies in Need is a nonprofit organization. It's a dog rescue specifically for dogs that are American Pit Bull Terriers, or the Pit Bull breed as we all know them. They were founded in April of 2005 and have been working with other groups to spread awareness about the breed and to find safe homes outside of the province of Ontario, as the breed has been banned from the province. They do have a bad name against them, and people do fear them. That's the reality. They end up in shelters very quickly. A lot of them are abandoned. This is Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha is currently my foster dog. She's been with me since December 2014. She's a 2.5-year-old American Pit Bull Terrier. She's a lovey-bove. Came to us a little shut down. She obviously was used for breeding. She's a wonderful, wonderful dog, has great qualities, loving, caring, fun, funny. She's not my dog, I'm her staff. That's how I like to see it. You become a staff to a Pit Bull because they do control the house, I'm telling you. You know, helping kids, that's my background, and I always work with the most challenged students. And dogs really don't have a voice. A child will grow up and maybe share their past and get some help, but a dog, and a dog like the Pit Bull Terrier, they have nothing. They have no voice, and people will always look at them as a bad dog. We shouldn't have them. They'll always fear them. We need to keep fighting for them because we're the only ones on their side. I'm sad when they have to go, and I'm probably gonna tear up now because just thinking of her leaving would be really hard, but she deserves a better life. She deserves a life with no muzzle, no cage, you know, and not having that stigma, I'm a bad dog or dangerous dog, because she's not. I just think that we need to help these dogs regain their identity, you know, as a good hunting dog, a good companion dog, because that's really what they are.
Oh, you are. You're Miss Chachi. Yes, you're Miss Chachi.
That was such a cute story.
Real communities include more than just people.
That's right. They include dogs, trees, books, and anything else that brings us together.
That's it for today. For the 25th hour, I'm Molly Kett.
And I'm Amna Pervez. Thanks for watching.